Hello, hello. Hope you all are doing well. Sorry to be late with the video. As a result, you're going to get an extension on your essay, but more about that later. So a lot I want to talk to you about, so I'm going to jump in and get started and take off my glasses so you can see me looking at you. I got all of the feedback returned on the ad analyses on stage 2. Almost all of them went out Friday. There were a couple that I had to do over the weekend. Some of the ones that were submitted right at the deadline or a little bit later. No big one thing across the board. I did try to give a lot of feedback on all of them. If you have questions about the feedback, please let me know. It was clear when I was looking at some of the analyses that some people had not looked at the feedback that I had given on the description. Please, please, please look at the feedback. I'm always going to put comments on there. If you did not submit a Word document, I couldn't put comments on there. So you need to make sure that you're submitting a file and not just putting the draft contents in the comments box for the submission. Make sure you're actually uploading that file. A few things I'll mention that I noticed. Passive voice versus active voice. This is a situation when you basically remove the action from the sentence. So instead of saying the dog chased the ball was chased by the dog, passive voice tends to be wordier, and it can make your writing hard to read. It can make it a bit convoluted. So I do recommend making passive voice active most of the time. Now, sometimes you want to use passive voice. Sometimes the attention really should be on the ball and not the dog that's chasing it. You'll see passive voice used a lot of times in science writing when experiments are carried out, etc. But for the most part, we want to avoid it, or we want to use it really judiciously as a way to change our sentence structure, etc. So please keep a lookout for that. If you're having a hard time with wordiness, you may have noted a comment from me about passive voice. If you need to talk that over, if that's something you all want a video done on, I'm glad to do it. Just let me know. Another thing to keep in mind, try to avoid first person and informality in your writing. So with the essay, this is going to be more formal, more academic writing. And I'm not saying that you've got to be all stilted and stuffy about it, but you don't want to put in, I call them Miss America statements, the I thinks, the I believes, the in my personal opinions. They can make your writing sound a bit weaker. Part of what you're doing in this essay is, of course, you're describing, and then you're analyzing, and you're essentially making a bit of an argument there when you do this analysis. And so the I thinks and the I believes and the I feels, they make your writing just seem a little bit watered down, like you're not that sure. To give you an example, if you came to me with an essay for another class and you said, "Do you think this is a strong essay?" And I said, "Yes, this is a strong essay," you would feel pretty good about that. If I said, "Well, in my opinion, I think," you might feel a little bit less assured. So keep that in mind as you work through that writing. A couple things I'll mention. If you refer to a person, like say a celebrity that's in an ad, by one name, make sure it's the last name and not the first name. If you find yourself using the word this a lot, and I'm guilty of this usage, this is a thing that I have to go and look for. This is what I call, and other people call it, a pointer word. So when you say this, you may see a comment from me that says what, or this what. So this should be followed by a word that tells me what this is. So is it this idea? Is it this effect? Is it this consequence? Find a noun to put there after this so that we know what this is. So those things, sentence structure and comment issues, and I apologize for not getting those 2 videos uploaded. Working on that. I'll try to get that done by end of day today. So what's next? Finishing this essay. So you've got your description, you've got your analysis, you have gotten feedback on both of those. I'm sorry if the camera's shaking. I keep accidentally kicking the table. You have gotten your feedback, so hopefully you are able to work with that feedback. If you need help with that, please let me know. So now we need to think about finishing the essay and starting the essay. So we talked about this as writing from the inside out, right? You're creating that body first, and then you'll sandwich it and finish it off. I recommend going ahead into your evaluation. Your evaluation for this essay is your concluding paragraph. The evaluation is essentially you saying whether this ad does a good job of reaching its intended audience and why or why not that is. Now, you've done a lot of that work in your analysis. So this is the part where you're going to sort of pull it all together. This can be a good time to reconsider the context of this ad. Was it placed in a magazine that seems to match the target audience? Was it placed well in that magazine? You know, they put it near something that would get the viewer's interest. Did they use good strategies? Just think about whether it's effective and why that is or why that is not. So give it some thought and draft it, write it up. Now, going back to the introduction. So if you have looked at the rubric, and I'll talk about the rubric here in just a minute. If you've looked at the rubric, you noted that the introduction and the thesis are not worth a tremendous amount of points for this essay. I did that for a couple reasons. First of all, as I mentioned before, students get anxious about introductions and thesis statements, and I wanted you to have a low-stakes opportunity to create an intro and thesis and get some feedback on it. Also, we just haven't spent a lot of time on that, really much at all. So I wanted us to have some practice with an essay, have y'all take a stab at it in a low-stakes environment. So thesis statement, I know you've heard it before, is essentially the main idea of your essay. So you're summing it up. For this essay, I have asked you to evaluate whether this ad successfully reaches its audience. So your thesis statement should address whether the ad successfully reaches its audience. Pretty simple, right? Now, I think about introductions in essentially inverted triangle format. So your thesis is down here. It doesn't have to be at the very end of the introduction, but as you're getting started with writing these essays, it's a good way to lay your stuff out. So anyway, your thesis is specific, right? It's about this ad. It's about whether it effectively reaches its audience. But we've got to get our reader from out here in general audience land, draw them into this paper, and get them to that thesis statement. Now, there are a lot of ways you can do that. You can maybe talk a bit about your ad to get them in. Maybe you could talk about advertising generally to get the reader in. Maybe you could do something totally different. That's fine. Maybe you could talk about persuasion. Maybe you could talk about how we are so inundated with advertising all the time. Lots of ways you could do this. So you could think of a cool way to start and then how you'll get from here to here. Or you could perhaps work backwards. So look at your thesis statement. You know, the ad for McDonald's chicken nuggets successfully reaches its audience through its use of blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, what would be the sentence that would lead us to that sentence? What do we need to say to get there? And then you can back it up and back it up and back it up. So you've got some different options. Play around with it. We'll talk about introductions a bit more in depth later. I don't want to stress y'all out with more information right now. Give it a shot and let's see. If you want to try something. If you've got some interesting idea about how to get your reader in, do it. Introduce the paper, include a thesis statement. I recommend, if you feel like you need a template for the thesis statement, or they say, I say, text talks about templates. If you want a template, here's a template for you. The ad for blank is or is not successful in reaching its target audience through its use of blah, blah, blah. Whatever the categories are that you talk about in your analysis, do it. So if you want to fill in the blank thesis, make that one sound a little better. I made that wordier than it needed to be. Drafting off the cuff here. So there you go. If you want that. Now, going back to our evaluation. For this paper, your evaluation paragraph is essentially the conclusion for this essay. So much as I like an inverted triangle for the introduction, Other way for the conclusion. So you've got your reader in the essay and you want to send them back out, right? So this is the part where you can kind of revisit that thesis, and don't just copy and paste your thesis from the first paragraph. Students do that sometimes. You gotta paraphrase yourself, especially in an essay that's short like this one is going to be. Having the same sentence twice close together, really noticeable. It's noticeable in a 5-page essay. So it's going to be really noticeable in an essay that's 4 to 6 paragraphs. So you can paraphrase yourself if that's a good way to start. And then you're going to sum up why this ad works or why this ad doesn't work. The analysis is talking about how the ad is working, like what the strategies are, and then the evaluation is the yay or nay. Does it work? Did it flop? How'd it go? So then if you did something cool in your introduction, if you asked an interesting question or you talked generally about advertising or something, you can revisit that in your conclusion to sort of tie things up. But the idea, too, is to leave your reader with something to think about. You're sending them back into that general audience land. You're sending them out of the paper. And send them out well. Don't just drop kick them. I have students who just kind of come to a screeching halt in their concluding paragraph. I've given you some guidelines for this. You are evaluating the ad in your conclusion. So I hope that's helpful. The conclusion is not a place to bring in new information. It's not a place to go in new directions with the topic. Sometimes students get really into the conclusion and keep going and bring in new information, and you end up feeling like you're about to get into another paper. If you find yourself bringing tons of information into the conclusion, ask yourself if that's something that needs to be addressed in one of the body paragraphs. So that's that. So make sure that you look carefully at the feedback you've gotten so far. Make sure that you look back at the assignment and the requirements, and make sure that you look at the rubric. I'm not going to screen share here, but I am going to pull up the rubric real quick and go over it while I'm pulling it up because I accidentally closed it before I opened up this. Please remember that you have the Writing and Reading Center, and you are required to use the Writing and Reading Center or the online writing lab at least twice this semester. So please, please, please make sure that you are planning to get that in. This essay is a great time to do that. So if you want to... Hold on, sorry. If you want to go ahead and get in with them for this essay, you can absolutely do that. Now, that said, you're going to want to get your draft to the online writing lab soon, or go ahead and get an appointment. The point of using the Writing and Reading Center or the online writing lab is to get that help and then use that help. So if you turn in your essay without getting that feedback and working with it, that's not really helpful. So make sure that you you don't have to use them for this essay, but I recommend it. I have recommended to some of you specifically to use the Writing and Reading Center or the online writing lab. The Writing and Reading Center experience is going to be interactive. You'll be with someone in Collaborate, going over your essay together, getting help from them in real time. The online writing lab, you're going to send in the essay and feedback will be sent to you. Obviously, the Writing and Reading Center is great when you need help in particular areas. The online writing lab is a bit more of a check. So, they may tell you, hey, you need a stronger thesis if you send it to the online writing lab. If you are in a session with the virtual Writing and Reading Center, then they'll actually be able to answer questions and help you as you work through that. So definitely something to keep in mind. So your rubric and checklist is in this week's folder. This is exactly what I'm going to use to grade your paper with. I had mentioned that I don't like a mystical grading process. I've tried to make everything as clear and objective as I can. So you'll see on there where all the points go. So the first thing you'll notice, introduction, 5 points. Briefly introduce the essay, include a thesis statement of whether the ad is successful. I've talked about that. I think it's fairly self-explanatory. The description. You need to have specific detail and precise language. Your organization needs to be logical, All relevant elements should be included. If it's important to envisioning that ad, it needs to be included in the description, and the reader should be able to envision the ad. So that's 15 points for the description. Then the analysis. Analyze the ad in detail. Make connections for the reader, thoroughly explaining the assertions. If you say, this ad clearly targets men of X age group because of Y, then go on and explain how that works. You need to make those connections for your reader. Pretend I'm lazy. I want you to lay it out for me. Show critical thought. So don't just take it at blank face value. Think about how this ad is working and show who the audience is and how the ad attempts to target them. Then you have your evaluation. So this is where you'll explain whether the ad successfully reaches the audience, why that is, and you sum up and conclude your essay. So 15 for the analysis, 15 for the description, 15 for the evaluation. MLA format, 20 points. By now you have gotten feedback from me on your MLA formatting a couple times. So if there's something that you're struggling with there, let me know. I know that a couple of people are having some issues where Blackboard is doing funny stuff with the file when it comes in. I do download the files and look at them if I see that. So if you're having trouble, please let me know. Grammar and punctuation, 20 points. Avoid run-ons and sentence fragments and produce clear, understandable academic prose. And then you get 10 points just for following the dang directions. As submitted and approved, you've used the feedback I've given you on the previous stages, you've submitted your assignment properly, and you have followed the directions. If you do that, automatic 10 points. So as I notice, if you just try to do what I've asked you to do, you're going to do okay here, okay? Other thing to mention, so submitting the assignment properly. There are 2 links, and I need you to submit it to both. There is a Turnitin link, and there is an assignment link, and you'll see them both in the folder for this week. Submit the essay to both links. Okay, Turnitin is our plagiarism detection software, and you can see your originality report once you turn it in there. But I will be doing the grading through the assignment link because that's where I'm going to leave all the feedback, all that good stuff for you to look at, just like I have on previous stages. So there you have it. That's the thing. So if you have questions about it, if you need help, please do not wait. Now, I told you I'd give you an extension. And I will. So I am going to kick the deadline out to noon on Friday. That gives you an extra. Actually, you know what? That's not enough. That's not enough. I tell you what, you drive a hard bargain. Okay. I'm going to kick that deadline out to 11:59 p.m. on Monday night. So if you need extra time on this essay, you have it. Now, some of you are clutching your imaginary pearls and saying, what? But I got my work done. I'm going to turn it in on time. I'll offer some bonus points. If you meet all of the assignment requirements and turn the assignment in by the original due date, I'll give you some bonus points. I'll give you at least 5 if you have met the requirements and you turn in the assignment by the original due date. This is not a thing I do very often, so it's because I was late getting you this video. Now, once we're done with this, we're going to start talking about the research project. So you've noticed there are library activities for this week, some discussion of topic. So think about what you want to research this semester. We're going to spend a few weeks on that topic. You do not have to have settled on a topic by next week, but I want you to start thinking about it, okay? So that was a lot. Thanks for your attention. Thanks for hanging in there. So if you need help, if you have questions, please get in touch. Remember, I have office hours this week. My remaining office hour is the noon on Wednesday hour, but I'm happy to set up an appointment or be in at another time. If you need help, please get in touch. And I look forward to reading your awesome essays. Take care.